Anyways, we'll see how that one goes. Away from that, Mark, it's those semi-finals, the Champions League semi-finals. We talked about them in this conversation last week. We perhaps even made predictions then. But for the sake of our new viewers, we're going to have to go through it again. This time, perhaps just looking, not just or in the big overview, but a proper preview of what we expect over 90 minutes in each one of those legs for these four teams. What do they have to offer? And how do they win, or where do they lose this tie? Let's start with Arsenal PSG. I've just talked about Arsenal potentially being European champions this year.
That's going to be...
How do they go past PSG, or do they not? And why and how?
It's going to be close. I mean, there are two appetizing fixtures. We're going to have some four cracking games. Home and away, Arsenal, PSG, PSG, Arsenal, Barca, Inter, Barca. I look at Arsenal, PSG, and I know that Arsenal beat PSG earlier on in the group stages in the Champions League. But this is a different PSG from the one which Arsenal beat. Simply because, one, they signed Kvaratskhelia from Napoli, arguably one of the best attacking midfielders there is in world football. This kid has it all. He's two-footed, he's a great playmaker, he's a goal scorer, he can run the game, and that's what I'm saying. This is a different PSG from the one which Arsenal beat last time. We saw what he could do in both games against Liverpool and the tie against Aston Villa, especially in the first leg at the Parc des Princes. And of course, PSG seem like a team which has a date with destiny. PSG have come that close. Mark, remember before Chelsea won the Champions League, I think they first lost to United in the final. Before Man City won the Champions League, I think they were beaten by Chelsea in the final. I tend to think that PSG got there and were beaten by Bayern, that Kingsley common goal, and right now they seem to have all the ingredients to win the Champions League. They've got a different team from the one they had, from the super team they had in that era of Mbappe and Neymar and CR7, but I love Dembele and Kvaratskhelia running at you on either flank, and I love the youthfulness of the attack, in whether it's Bakola or Desiree. I think Arsenal, we've spoken about how Arsenal are very, very solid defensively, and I think Arsenal are where they are, not because of their firepower, but because of how they've managed to shut out Real Madrid, both home and away. And I think it's a credit to their defensive structure.
Okay.
That they've advanced that far. But I think they are facing a PSG team which, whisper this quietly, have got a more formidable attack than Real Madrid. Real Madrid may have the better individuals, but Mark, PSG, for me, are actually more fearsome going forward than the individuals of Real Madrid. Real Madrid who've struggled to build their chemistry.
Yeah, certain.
I think it is going to be very close. Quite close. I just think that PSG, the way in which they beat Liverpool at Anfield, and even the manner in which they exited Aston Villa, even though it was cagey, like I said, for me, they seem to have a certain date with destiny, and I'll give them the nod over Arsenal, over the two legs.
Okay, date with destiny, well, interesting. PSG do have one, but so do Arsenal. Both teams actually have not won the Champions League before. They're the two of the four left that haven't won the Champions League.
PSG is chasing 4 trophies. Arsenal are chasing their first trophy.
Yeah. But you're hoping that this is one of the years in which we get a new winner of the Champions League. Every once in a while we do. The other semi-finals got Barcelona and Inter Milan. They both won the championship before. Barcelona 5 times, Inter Milan 3. But just going back to what you just said about that formidable attack that PSG have got. It's unbelievable, the pace in their ranks and the abilities to beat men in their attacking ranks. You talked about Bakola and Doué and Kvaratskhelia and Dembele. It's just amazing. And they have got Lee Khan as well, who has barely got a kick in recent times in the Champions League because of the fierce competition for places up front. However, for me, one of the things that that attack will have to do that Madrid did not do if PSG are going to beat Arsenal is to actually help out when they do not have the ball, when PSG is not in possession. I thought that Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, that front three, really let their teammates down at the Emirates in the first leg, because that's when they lost the tie, 3-0 to Arsenal. They let down their team because they did not help their fullbacks, they did not help that midfield in plugging gaps and chasing down men in possession, chasing down a team that is one of the most solid, one of the most well-oiled in Europe this year, Arsenal are, because Arsenal play as a unit, and for PSG to overcome them, they need to play as a unit. The biggest battle starts, of course, in midfield, because Arsenal have got a trio that have got all three things. They run their socks off, they cover ground. They have got maturity, tactical maturity. The tactical maturity most manifests itself in Thomas Partey. His maturity, I mean, the amount of foot, he played some of his best football of his career.
Is he suspended for the first leg?
He might be. I think he's suspended for the first leg. Yeah,
a big blow for us.
Yeah, big blow. The tactical maturity with which I approached both legs against Real Madrid was amazing. Some of the best football he has actually played in his career, and even if it was not necessarily naked to the eye. But and his legs, Declan Rice. Declan Rice covers the entire ground over 90 minutes. He puts in way too much work. And then, of course, the technical polish onto that midfield trio is provided by Martin Odegaard. His ability to pass, his ability to find spaces and to knock passes into them, his ability to knit together plays and keep finding the pockets in which he's unmarked. So those three are going to have to be matched by the three of PSG, and I'm talking the Frenchman Fabian. I'm talking about
Marquinhos, Mendes, and Hakimi.
Mendes and Hakimi as fullbacks are part of PSG's strength going forward, because these two guys virtually reside across the center line, and they're goal scorers. Mendes and Hakimi have scored lots of goals in the Champions League and in the league itself. They are providers because they get in behind the cross. They also play as hybrid and can play inside, can go wide and cross, can play inside on the attack and everything. So they are really accomplished. But they're going to have to do a lot of defensive work in trying to stop Saka.
My prayer for this tie
and Martinelli.
For this tie over 180 minutes, and the other tie, Barcelona Inter over 180 minutes, is that you don't have a match which is spoiled by a clumsy decision in the 3rd minute, a red card. These things happen, Mark. A last minute send off, because you want 11 men against 11 men over 90 minutes, so that teams outthink one another. Because listen, we can discuss what we think the games will turn out to be, and then you get a Marquinhos or a Saliba being sent off in the 4th minute.
Yeah,
and just kills
the whole complexion and all. Oh, yes. It could even be an injury. I mean, for example,
an injury.
Like Mbappe left off in that second leg when Madrid needed him most. When it was still at I think at 1-1, and they were looking to try and get 2 more goals or something like that, and then he limps off with that twisted ankle. You saw how the impact Mbappe had in the cup final against Barcelona when he came on at half mast, and you wonder if he had finished that game at half, what might have happened. But here, Mendes and Hakimi are going to have to do a lot of work backwards in stopping Saka and Martinelli, who are in great form. But because of the way Arsenal attack as a unit, because Saka and Martinelli do not play in isolation, they play with the help of Odegaard and their fullbacks, and they play with the help of Merino, because Arsenal actually playing as a 5th midfielder as a false nine, which helps. So ideally, PSG are going to have to do a lot more work defensively than Madrid did to stop Arsenal. For their attacking strength to show, they're going to have to do the defensive work first, because one of the things Arsenal, of course, have been doing in the Champions League is coming quickly out of the blocks. They come out quick and want to get early ones. And once they get that early one, they're hitting you on the break throughout the game.
The tie of interest for Uganda is Arsenal, PSG.
Yes.
But actually, the bigger ties be Barcelona, Inter Milan.
Because of the pedigree,
Because
European
of the
pedigree, yeah.
They share 8 European titles between them. And listen, there's a bit of stardust on that pitch between the two teams. When you look at guys like Dimarco, Lautaro Martinez, you look at
Nico Barrera.
Nico Barrera on the other side. And then you have a Barca team which has been built in the typical archetypal Barca image. Those kids, Gavi, Pedri, Kubasi, Lamine Yamal, and Rafinha, and the likes. I think the Barca-Inter game is going to be quite a spectacle, because I've tried to think through this tie, and listen, Inter Milan are arguably the most tactically sound team in Europe. I mean, what Simone and Inzaghi has done in terms of building that team, they don't know when they're beaten. They are quite compact. They punish you on the break. They are potent because they've got formidable goal scorers. They've got a good goalkeeper. They are not as easy on the eye as Barcelona are, but they get the job done, and they're not where they are by mistake mark.
It's going to be a real mouth-watering one, this one. For Barcelona to get into that Champions League final and perhaps add on to the 5 titles, because in the face of their eternal rivals Real Madrid, Barcelona have really underachieved in this tournament.
Yes, they have.
They've only got 5 trophies to Madrid's 15, and yet there was an era in which they were the best team in Europe and perhaps could have won more. Problem is, of course, that Madrid started early. They won the first championship in 1955 and won 5 straight until 1960, when Benfica eventually won something in 61 and 62. Barcelona only started winning in 1992 when Ronald Koeman scored that final against Sampdoria, and even then did not win again until the Pep Messi era, in which they managed to get the chance. Oh, well, there was one in 2006 before Pep and Messi, yeah. And then the other 3 was actually won in the Messi and Pep era. Now, so they have a lot of catching up to do. This season presents a good opportunity for them to do that. But for them to overcome Inter, there are certain things that have got to happen. Because of the 4 teams left in the Champions League, they're actually the least experienced in terms of age and Champions League mileage. Yes. Lamine Yamal has not played as much Champions League football as, say, Dembele or Saka or whatever. Or even Lautaro Martinez, who is going to be up against
all the guys, even Gavi, Pedri, Kubasi,
they haven't.
Even Rafinha.
Even Rafinha, yeah. Yes. The only person who has played that much Champions League football is the one who is missing.
Lewandowski.
Robert Lewandowski injured now, and they badly needed him here, and his goals and his experience and his calming influence, as well as even the destruction that he provides. The destruction provided with the Inter defense is one which would have allowed either for Yamal or Rafinha, who are playing from wide areas, to get into shooting positions. It's not easy to defend
Lewandowski.
Yeah.
It's such a very crafty forward.
Or would have helped people like Pedri and Olmo, the attacking midfielders.
Yeah, and finish on with the other foot. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So he's a big miss. And one of the other things, of course, that Barcelona have working against them is how, in relative terms, I'm not saying generally, but in just relative terms, in how much easier it is to score against them than it is to score against Inter. Yeah. Even in the Copa del Rey final, you saw, despite their dominance of that game, Madrid managed to get 2 goals in there, and it was 2-2, and took it and went to extra time. Could even easily have got into penalties. And the way those goals came, it was virtually against the run of play for Madrid, because Barcelona were dominating territory and everything. And so was the case. I mean, they conceded goals against Benfica and against Dortmund in the previous rounds before getting to the semi-final. And if they give Inter just the kind of legroom that Dortmund have, they don't expect to beat Inter because they will not score that many themselves. Inter are solid defensively. And they have a back 3, which is literally a back 5, because, like we said, they are wide men. The wing backs, Demian and Fratesi, and whoever plays there. Sometimes I think they've not had Dumfries lately. He's also been out injured. I don't know if he's back. But those guys, I mean, they have a defensive 5. They have 2 holding midfielders, and they're tough to break down. So Barcelona will have to work their socks off but also ensure that they do not concede. One of the things I like Mark, about the Champions League quarterfinals, or rather semi-finals, and it was largely the same issue as in the quarterfinals, to be honest, is that somehow the competition is left with teams with Europe's elite goalkeepers. The goalkeepers who fall in the elite category are the only ones who stayed in the competition. And even the ones now who have been knocked out, the Courtois and all left in the quarterfinals and everything, were elite. But now Inter have Jan Sommer, Barcelona have Szczesny playing better football out of retirement than before retirement. And Arsenal have got David Raya, whose goal has matured in leaps and bounds, and he's played himself into elite competition over the last 18 months. And then, of course, you've got Donnarumma, who has shown in this Champions League competition that he's one of the top goalkeepers in the world, especially the work he did against Liverpool and against Liverpool and against Aston Villa. There were great saves in there that have put Donnarumma back in there in case there were any doubts. So those cancel each other out, and it is in front of them, especially at the back and in midfield, that these Champions League games are going to be won.